Okay, welcome Orlee Stewart to Flambeau Noir 2021. um, so, Orlee, if anybody isn't aware, is an occult artist from Toronto, Canada, and she's now living in New Orleans. She's a witch, priestess, exorcist, and ordained bishop. And so we first met back in 2012 when you participated in the Lightbringers art show that was part of the first International Left Hand Path Conference back in 2012. And that at that event, that the art show I think was probably the most successful part of the whole event. um, and when you were participating in that, from what I understand, you made some contacts and then ended up joining the OTO for a while, and then you are doing some all kinds of crazy stuff now.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just before I go on, just want to make sure that my video is working. I'm just taking a look at the screen and it seems like it's not moving. I'm not sure if people can hear me. Um, Please let me know if it's working for you.
Okay.
So, um, anyway, so yeah, I had started doing magic and participating in stuff with the OTO from when I was 18 years old. So I had been in it a couple of years before we met,
Oh, okay.
but that was really the point of when I was fully allowing my art and magic to really become one and had been learning a lot more about how to officiate ceremonies in magic. And also, that was right around the exact same time when I started working with demons, in particular with the Lemegeton and the demons of the Goetia. So that has been a crazy journey for me. Now I live in New Orleans, and myself and my girlfriend, our practice is very much centered around the spirits of the dead
Mhm.
and learning about these mysteries from these preternatural intelligences, which is what I'm here to talk about today.
Right. So your topic today is transforming reality with preternatural entities. And so I'll give the floor to you so you can give your presentation, and then we can do a question answer period afterwards. So I'm totally
Cool.
looking forward to it, and here you go.
So, you've probably come here to watch this presentation because you're interested in the idea of changing your life, changing your reality by working with entities that are basically beyond human. So, the idea of practicing magic is very vast. We can think of it in the most simplified way in what we can quote from Crowley in Magic and Theory and Practice, which is magic is the art of conforming reality with our will. And when we think about reality, every single thing we experience is what creates the world we live in. And when we start working with these entities, we gain secrets and keys to be able to not only control our reality and to transform it, but also in order to understand the workings of reality beyond what we have basically been told, and even further than that, which is beyond what those who've written the grimoires of old discovered based on the progression of magical technologies over the ages. So that is something that's a huge aspect of my magical and spiritual experiences. So when we think about the idea of us contacting demons, for example, or angels, or really any kind of preternatural intelligence, it is an intelligence that is beyond us. And this is a huge aspect that will take your magic and your ability to create your reality to the next level, because these spirits have a greater understanding of things beyond us. And when we work with them, we will gain this information. And it's certainly not something that is easy to do, but it is something that we can learn from over time. So, one of the first things that I wanted to touch on is the idea of us being these ambassadors to these spirits. So, when we look at magic from a practical sense, in we are composing a ritual to have a particular outcome, and we are contacting these spirits to create and change our reality in accordance with that. One thing that's really important for people to consider when we are contacting these entities is, why are we contacting them? One thing that I really wanted to talk about today, especially because so many people are now working with the secrets of magic and working with these entities, even these demons that are very much ancient gods and spirits that are far more powerful than we even can understand. When we approach them for our desires, we are also creating our reality. So the type of magic that you do is part of your work as an ambassador to these spirits. So, for example, if we are doing magic just for like material gain or just baneful magic out of anger, we are being an ambassador of those situations to these entities. They're experiencing humanity, interacting with them for these needs. And this is something that a lot of people don't really consider or think about when we are practicing, because if you would like to have a life where you are feeling good and feeling happy and feeling fulfilled, you have to be really careful about the way that you are contacting these entities. There's always a place where darker magic is necessary, but generally speaking, one thing that can take us further in our work with these entities is having this attitude of being an ambassador. And so that's something that I would like for you to consider. When you are going forth and summoning these entities, what is your intent? And what does this intent say as a representative of the human race to these entities? And through that, that is how you're going to be establishing your relationship with them. Just like encountering another person that you may meet, the idea is we're contracting preternatural intelligences beyond our own. So this is something that I would like for you to put in your pocket for later, because over time, the world that we are creating in our reality will be articulated by the type of magic that you do, beyond just like big rituals for some sort of gain, but in the daily rituals that you do, in the daily way that you conduct yourself with the spirits. All of these things are vital in how the spirits are going to connect to you and to form these relationships in the greater thing than the whole. And I think it is also important to note that these spirits do see things outside of time and also beyond just that particular moment in which we are summoning them. So it's always important that you're allowing yourself to be the best ambassador that you can be in order to develop the types of relationships that you would like with these entities. So a really important way that you can develop these sciences is through your own personal research. And we are at a state in history that is quite advantageous because we have access to all kinds of different occult grimoires and documents that would once have been kept as guarded secrets or require people to be initiates of magical orders for tons of time before even being allowed to learn about these things. So we really have a wealth of information to draw from, as well as we have work from many contemporary occultists in their relationship and research with these entities. So, what I would recommend to people who are learning and working with contacting preternatural intelligences is to do as much research as you possibly can. And research is definitely going to be something that is beyond just looking at what contemporary people are doing, but looking more to the source material. And then even to the source material from there, like from where these people from hundreds of years ago would have been taking their information from, always going and returning to the source. And that way you're going to be in contact with those same types of spirits. One thing that is super important when we are in contact with preternatural intelligences is to test the information. So, one thing that I always like to have people think about is, how do you know the information that you're receiving from the spirit is true or if it has value? A big aspect of this, first of all, is going to be, are you actually in contact with the spirit you had intended to contact? Or have you accidentally contacted a trickster spirit due to poor understanding of the formula required to contact the actual spirit that you want to get in touch with? And so it's going to be through your research into these various systems and formula that will help you understand how to structure rituals in a way where you're actually going to be in contact with that same entity. Because let me tell you, in my experiences of over a decade of practicing magic and working with these spirits, it's not always going to be so cut and dry. Everyone likes to think that after they get to a certain point that they are ultimately powerful and everything they do is going to be perfect and exactly what they want. But it's not always the case. There's always going to be entities waiting to try to trick you. And that's something that's really important to think about, because when you work with these entities, you start to enter into a state of non-ordinary reality, and then lots of weird stuff can happen. And so the way that we can protect ourselves from succumbing to delusion, for example, is first of all making sure that you're in contact with the entity that you really are intending to contact. This is going to be through working with that you will find in traditional grimoires to contact those spirits, or through your own particular practice once you have come to the point where you can contact spirits and they've actually proven themselves to be able to have the effect that you're looking for in your life. And thank you all so much for your questions in the chat. I'll take a moment here to just check out what is going on. Someone is asking, what's the relationship of a hexagram or a heptagram to magic? And you're also asking how to know if any changes have occurred or happened in the real world, not just in the influencer's mind. So shapes have representations of reality and the geometric form, and also things like numerology and gematria. So the hexagram, in the way that I work with it, is like if you imagine a pentagram where each point on the pentagram represents one of the different elements, the hexagram having the point above and below also indicates the spirit above and below. That's how I work with it. And then the heptagram, the way that I work with it, represents the goddess Babylon, the mother of abominations, that I work with very heavily in my practice. But that's just my personal way of working with those shapes. So to answer your other question, it totally ties in perfectly with what I'm talking about, which is, so how do we know if changes have occurred in the real world versus just in the magician's mind? And so, well, number one, do you have actual tangible results in what you're doing? Like, I mean, that's the most obvious thing, but a big aspect of it is to think about when we enter the non-ordinary reality of working with these spirits, we also are harnessing the power of our subjective reality. So your subjective reality is influencing that world all around you. And then, of course, there is the greater objective reality. And when you're a magician, your subjective reality is going to have a stronger influence over the reality around you. So one thing that you'll really want to do is take a look at your life. Even imagine your life like a graph where you have the highs and lows of the things that you've accomplished and things that have potentially gone wrong. Sometimes it will be an ordeal that will happen that is going to bring you to a better place in your life, and that's totally normal. But if it's something that is only in your mind, it's not going to have a way of influencing beyond just your own subjective reality. So, a really great way of testing this information is going to be to ask the spirits to manifest something for you that is actually tangible. It could be in the sign of you finding something, it could be in the sign of you seeing something like on the television screen or as you're driving past. That is an indication of the spirit. And these little things are all cues. We follow them and they bring us to a place of understanding our own psychic influence over reality. Once you start seeing the things in your reality around you or having experiences that are related to working with the spirit. So, like, to give you an example, let's say you work with a system of magic like the Ars Notoria and you want to become better at public speaking and you've contacted these spirits to help you with that. Well, the way would be to test it. And you're going to have to push yourself out of that comfort zone of what you are normally doing to see if what you've asked for is actually going to come to pass or not. And then allow yourself to take that risk. So a big part of it is meeting the spirits halfway by taking that step of going out of your comfort zone and doing the things that you would probably need to do in order to make that thing actually manifest. So, Towering Sequoias is asking about my thoughts on the afterlife. So I definitely feel like there is a lot going on in terms of answering that question. And my work with preternatural intelligences has really helped me with that. So I feel like there are many different things that can happen to people in the afterlife. And a big part of it as a magician is we are gaining access into this world where the spirits reside. And also, especially when we work with the spirits of the dead, we are in direct contact with these spirits experiencing their afterlife. So I feel like, I guess the best way to summarize it is my thoughts are when I think about the afterlife, I feel deeply humbled because there are only the fragments of information that I've been able to experience. I have had real death experiences where I did experience realities and what people would think of as the afterlife. You can see it in my paintings. That's on my website, motherofabominations.com, and then also in the art show that we're currently having for Flambeau Noir. All those experiences are of this other world. And I feel like we can access this from anywhere. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like after you pass away, you gain access to it. I feel like a big purpose of the magician's path is working with these spirits of the afterlife to exist beyond linear time. And through that, you have the ability to cause so much more change than you would have even basically imagined. So it's pretty fantastic. And thank you so much, Jeremy, for posting the link to the art show in the chat as well. I feel like you can contact spirits that have passed away. I have contacted them. That's a huge part of my work. And this is a big aspect of even thinking about preternatural intelligence, because it could be easy for someone to have like delusions of experiencing ghosts in the same way that you could with demons or anything of that nature. But the key is when we are being these ambassadors with these spirits, we are going to be trading information. So they get to experience the physical world through us, through interacting with us. And very often, what these spirits will want in return is for me to complete some sort of perhaps mundane action in the physical world in exchange for them helping me in this physical world as well. In many ways, it kind of seems like these entities can see our world and life as if it is a game board, and then they can look beyond and move things around and even change it completely, especially even through shifting our own reality in very minute ways over time, just like when you reset yourself every day when you go to sleep. You are resetting your reality in a way where it can change, and the spirits are actually able to totally change your entire life around. But a big aspect of that is knowing what you actually want. And that's another thing that is part of the whole idea of being an ambassador, because the spirits don't always give us what we want. Sometimes they will give us what we need, because they can see beyond what we are able to actually understand. And perhaps we've done a spell to get one particular outcome, but that outcome may not be good for us in the long run. So they might allow us to go through that ordeal. So we'll grow and we won't do that again. Or they'll just make it so that doesn't happen. And then people are often facing that worry like, oh, did my spell not work? But really, the spirits have your back in those situations. And a big part of that is thinking about, once again, that idea of being an ambassador to preternatural intelligence. So the spirits are going to be more likely to have your back and to protect you, even like from your own self and from you going down the wrong choices for yourself, if you have taken the time to develop a relationship with that spirit. And then that way they'll be more likely to help you, especially if you are working with them in the ways that make them truly happy. So, for example, one of the demons that I really like to work with is Dantalion. And Dantalion, I find in my practice, he really likes it when I try to spread love. And that's not really something you might think of when you think of a demon, but it also has its dark side as well. So there's a lot to take away from this, but I hope that answers your question about that. And so one thing also, when you're contacting preternatural intelligence and we're thinking about like how to get the results we want from working with these entities, is knowing that we should be careful about what we wish for, because they will allow us to go through these ordeals to help us to evolve. And when we think of contacting these spirits, we can break it down kind of into two different categories. There are the magical experiences that we do that are for gaining personal evolution and enhancing ourselves spiritually. And then there's also gaining things in the physical world, opportunities, love, vengeance, whatever it is in your own personal life and based on your own personal wants and needs. And if you are only working with one of those things, you will probably reach a point where you need to do both. It's very important for people to work on both of those things as a balance, especially in the left-hand path, because very much we get caught up in this idea of the evil material. But if you are not doing any kind of work on your own personal evolution, it can be really hard for you to even understand and decipher the messages that these spirits have for us. So you're always going to be wanting to do both of these kind of things, that magic that will help you to be comfortable in your life and to be able to do what you need to do and to live your will. And then also doing that work, which we call shadow work in this practice, where you're allowing yourself to grow and change. So you are actually able to understand things. You could even see it as like allowing the light of Lucifer to illuminate you to see what is in the darkness. So I think I have been talking for half an hour now. Did you want to do the Q&A now, Jeremy? I can keep going,
Um,
but
yeah, I mean, this is fine. I mean, people came here to see you, not me. So if you want to keep doing the questions, I can put you back on full screen and you can
sure.
keep going if
Yeah.
you'd like.
Well, yeah. Why don't you come on and we'll answer some more of these questions that are going on here. So Kendra has a question, which is, have you ever had a spirit choose to reside inside one of your paintings, especially a piece you've used in ritual? So, yes, I absolutely have. I did. There's one painting that I can think of in particular that really is like literally that, which is a painting that I did of the sigil of Belial, which is it's a hand, and then it has Belial's sigil painted on the painting of the hand. And it is an ode to a ritual that I did with Belial, where I first offered him that blood sacrifice from my blood to connect with his energy and his current. And it was going to just be like a painting that I did. When I also, as an artist and as a painter, it's not like every single painting I do is haunted. I've had people try to say that, which is kind of amazing, and like that's so cool to me. Like maybe it is. I don't know. I don't intend for it to be, but typically when I do paintings of spirits, the spirit will be evoked into the painting as I'm painting it. But with this, it was me painting an experience, which is when I was giving that sacrifice to Belial of my blood, and I was doing a painting of it. But then Belial did not want me to ever sell the painting. My friend Rosemary, who's actually in the art show also, she wanted to buy it, and Belial would not let me sell the painting to her. And so now I just keep it as a talisman to working with Belial in my magic. Um, David says ancestry question marks. Are you asking about my ancestry or the ancestry of something else? I do not understand. Um, yeah, the whole idea behind why I like to create these paintings is because it allows me to express what you cannot explain in human words or even human ideas.
I'm actually curious about your experience in becoming a bishop. How did that come
Yeah,
about?
it's actually kind of a hilarious story that I didn't tell people about for a long time, but I realized that it was actually pretty cool. So when I lived in California, I was involved in all kinds of crazy renegade spiritual groups. So we had a lot of people that were in different um, reputable occult orders with real lineages, and they were people that had a falling out with the order over some reason or another, as everyone does. In many ways, and they offered to make myself and the other people that I was living with in our house all bishops from the lineage of the wandering bishops. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it was this whole thing because at the time we were actually running this I don't know what to really call it, but it was inspired by the Voodoo Gnostic current by Michael Berdio.
Right.
And we were running this whole cult out of our basement in our house in California. And we were calling our house the Black Vatican because of that. And it was this whole thing where people that were witches would come and do rituals in our basement that was set up as this giant temple. and also people from just like the club would come and participate in these crazy rituals. And so that went on for a while, and we would start having these ceremonies, and then people would come and share their magical currents with us, and we would invite them into what we were doing in this very, very like renegade kind of punk rock way. And so anyway, yeah, so these people that are bishops, they are friends of ours, and they came over and they made all of us bishops in the basement of our house with all these people there as part of the ceremony. And it was never something that I was actually pursuing. It was just something that was like a gift to me, because the people who bestowed that upon me also felt like it would be hilarious to make me a bishop, like for the lulz, which I also appreciate as a big part of my magic. So that's how I became a bishop, because some people who were of that lineage left a group they were in and then just started making people bishops, very much in the real tradition of the wandering bishops too. So that's kind of fun. So yeah, that's how that happened.
That sounds awesome. Actually, something very similar happened to me one time where I was just in the right place at the right time and with the right people. And yeah, I ended up getting like an initiation that I didn't really. And later on, I thought, you know what, it's actually kind of cool. So I started telling people. So very similar, that something similar happened to me as well. And it's fun when that happens, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty amusing. Um, but in that same vein, it does not conflate with my work with Satan or any of these demons. I just did huge path working over the course of the past 2 years, where I summoned each of the 9 demonic gatekeepers and wrote about it with the series that Become a Living God put out.
Hmm.
And that was really transformative for me as well, especially like in terms of contacting these preternatural intelligences. With many of these spirits, no one had really done comprehensive workings with them, like as a magician, and documented it. And we would have things like from various apocryphal texts here and there that you could like take a little bit of information on, but there wasn't that much there. And so that was one of the most interesting things, because I also work as the assistant editor for our publishing company. So I would get to read everyone's contributions as they would come in. And these occultists putting these grimoires together, most of them don't even talk to each other, but they're all working with these same demonic gatekeepers, yet are able to have the same kind of revelation and information that was transmitted to them across the world. So it was so fascinating.
That's pretty cool. Like a demonic internet.
Very much so. Very much so. And I think that's a big aspect of preternatural intelligence as well, is that it is part of technology. This is technology. Magic is a technology just as much as it is art. And that it's kind of our duty to keep integrating these things into the future as technology grows. We really need to keep feeding it our spiritual essence, as it were, so it becomes part of that. And I feel that's part of like a big aspect behind the role that I'm doing.
And I think that the part of the theme of this whole event is there was kind of the surface theme, which was the waking dream, but there was also kind of an undercurrent of the cyberspace. That this was the first event in cyberspace, and kind of utilizing technology um, and and all of that, like that you've been talking about as well too. So that's really cool. I see that there's some more questions here. Oh, actually, I have another question, if you don't mind, and it's related to the
Yeah,
previous one.
absolutely. Oh, can you grab
Um,
me a drink? Thank you.
so, in your bio, it also says that you're an exorcist. So, how does that tie in with the bishop thing, if it does at all or not? And
Oh, I mean, it
the work with
certainly does. Thank you, Darren.
preternatural entities, of course,
Oh
it
yeah.
seems to be directly
Thank you, sir.
connected to that as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, it all really like goes together completely perfectly, because in my practice, I work with all of the forces above and the forces below. And all of these things work together in tandem to give us a complete access over reality, because we can really miss out if we're not working with all of the forces, because we can get really caught up in the left-hand path of thinking like we should only work with demons and never work with angels. But that's not what this is about. The left-hand path is about realizing our freedom of being able to create reality over slavery. It's not this battle. We're going to get lost if we only allow ourselves to have access to part of these currents of information. Because, I mean, there's angels like Samael. There's angels that are evil and dark. It's still very spooky. It's not like you have to subscribe to churchianity to work with those forces. So what I do in my exorcism is I combine all the different methods of magic that I have been studying and practicing into like some kind of, I guess, pseudo-Gnostic, Luciferian, satanic ceremony, but it is very effective.
So what would you say is your practice? Like it sounds very eclectic, and that you've picked up a lot of things along the way into your incorporated into your toolkit, and that you've come to your own uh, system essentially, which is great. I think that anybody who practices long enough and explores is usually going to, especially in the left-hand path, going to develop their own system like that. But if you were to come up with some sort of label for that, what would that be?
Um, I was thinking about this the other day. So it's really like cycled back and forth. So first I was really into Thelema, and then I was saying I was a Satanist. Now all of these things are still true, but now I would say I'm a techno mage, because I am working with all the technologies of magic and I'm fully invested in the evolution of spirituality as a technology.
Very cool. What do you think about transhumanism?
I think that it's important for us to start thinking about these concepts in terms of our own evolution. I'm very much for it, and I'm very invested in really like seeing beyond the innovations that we currently have to something new and something greater, even in acting a way that might even seem kind of silly. So, like, one example of this is my girlfriend got me a Roomba vacuum, and I have been treating it like it is a living entity, like with respect and love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like when we do these things, when we interact with technology, it's just like the idea of being an ambassador with preternatural intelligence. And like, I know that is so crazy. Like, I'm fully aware of it, but I do these things that are absurd on purpose in order to access realities that are beyond ordinary reality. And I only do things that I find actually have like tangible results to cause change. If something is just like crazy for crazy's sake and doesn't have any tangible results, that's just going to be a waste of time for me, because I just like to get stuff done, and if it's not having a result, then I'll just like move on.
Right. There's a method to your madness, in other words.
Yeah.
And that's interesting you said about the Roomba, because I've watched those videos of Boston Dynamics where they've got, I think it's called Spot, the dog robot, and they're like kicking it and just basically to show that it can maintain its balance, right? But I'm still thinking in my head, you're showing, it seems really disrespectful to be just booting, just giving it a boot like that, right? And I'm like thinking in my head, this is why the robot rebellion happens, because of
Yeah, for
this.
sure. Exactly. And I think we can take that exact same concept and apply it to working with these spirits. So like if we think about like why are people contacting these intelligences? Like think about that. Like what representation are you giving to these entities of what it is to be human? Because even though they will do the things that you ask for, it doesn't mean like it's not creating some sort of opinion, and also is going to change the way that they will cause those results to happen.
Very good point. I see there's some more questions in the chat.
Oh yeah, let's take a look. Okay, so I see some people from my channel on here. Hey, Kelvin. So Kelvin says, how did you get on the left-hand path and why? I started on the left-hand path because I did not fit in the religious environment that my family had, even though I really, really tried. And I basically had to start learning how to do magic to have control over the intense paranormal experiences I was having with ghosts and things of that nature. And so so David was saying our ancestors in contact. So our ancestors are a great way to work with the spirits of the dead, and that's something that's very important for people. Even if you didn't get along with your immediate ancestors, getting in touch with the current of where you've come from, even beyond this own life, is going to be a huge key aspect in working outside of linear time and gaining more information and insights into your own life. So adversarial self says, what perspective do you have on the aspect of spiritual servitors? So I'm not sure exactly what kind of answer you're looking for, but I have worked with servitors in my practice. I also work with them in a respectful way, just like I would with any other kind of spirit. And I also do so very sparingly because I don't want to have something going on magically that I might forget about. And I think that's something that a lot of people that start working with servitors do, is you start doing like all different kinds of stuff all the time, and then you might forget about something that's pretty important. So yeah. So Towering Sequoia says, do you use the classic Solomonic triangle or circles for contact, or do you use your own newer type, like Michael Ford's Goetia of Shadows, Azazel instead of Michael? So in my practice, I like to use a more Typhonian form of banishing that involves Egyptian spirits. That's how I do it. Although sometimes I will use the traditional methods. It really just honestly depends on what I'm feeling that day. Like if I want to go more Luciferian, or if I feel like I want to go more traditional. But on that same vein, if I am using any kind of more traditional goetic evocation, I am not using any of the disrespectful aspects of it, only just the very beginning parts of the conjurations. But I also have a book on the Goetia that I've written that has invocations that I wrote for Solomonic magic for working with the lesser key. You can actually find it on Amazon. It's called a Black Magician's Companion Guide to the Goetia. And I put together a whole formula of how I put the system together from a left-hand path perspective. And that's based on all my experiences of like over a decade of working with these demons, and all the things that my teachers have shown me that I've added into the overall evocation beyond just the traditional formula, which I break down. Aradia says, who exactly is Satan for you? Satan for me is the archetype of the adversary, the ruler of the earth, the same Satan that most people think of. That is the egregor that I tap into and I work with in my practice. Oh, thank you guys so much.
How is that? What is Lucifer to you? Is that, and how does that compare to Satan in your uh, perspective?
Certainly. So I work with Lucifer as a completely separate entity. So Satan, I work with to really summon that antagonistic adversarial force. And then Lucifer is the force that allows us to see this power that is hidden from us, like the true light bearer, that true revealer to people. So I suppose I could work it into saying I work with Lucifer more for illuminating people and to help free people, and then Satan more for dominion over earthly endeavors and also for harnessing the power of the adversary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have some cool questions here. So Jamie says, do you create entities using your art, or do you only work with existing entities? So that's a really good question, because I think that even the entities that I'm like creating in the art, the things that are not like one particular spirit that people have heard of or are looking for me to paint and represent, even like when I'm just looking at a blank canvas and painting what will come forth, I feel like those entities do exist and that I'm not actually like creating them myself, but I am allowing them to come through and show themselves to people. So yeah. Um, so Lusal says, do you think there's a need for improvement of image of Satanism in society? Would a more tolerant attitude for religious people be a positive thing? And a big C of who light messengers are. So that, I mean, of course, we don't want to be discriminated against for our spiritual beliefs, especially when we are really touting freedom and freedom of expression. However, we can't force people that don't want to experience this kind of power to access it. So certainly, of course, it would be nice if people were tolerant of us, but it's something that can really only come over time by us leading by example. So, a big aspect of it is live your life as a representative of these forces, and then let other people make their own opinions of that from you, and to just do your own part in that way. But most people don't want to live in a world where spirits are real. They don't want to live in a world where they don't have all the answers. And if their religion is taken away from them, it's very, very scary. And that's why they're so afraid of us, because we're not living in the same reality as them, basically. Um, Joel Rapport says, do you feel that gatekeepers are external entities or the voice of one's own kundalini? I don't think the kundalini is something that is like a voice. That's not really like how you traditionally would work with that. But in terms of the gatekeepers, like I was saying, it's definitely preternatural intelligence, because we would have like 10 different authors from all over the world just start doing their own created rituals to summon entities and then put it together in a book. And then as I was working on these books with Become Living God, we would find that people would have the same kind of information from these spirits. And this isn't just like what you would find on researching these spirits and common knowledge, but something that's totally random would just start happening to every single person working with it. So it's definitely something beyond the own self. But then people love to say that quote from Crowley where he said that the demons are aspects of our own mind. But if you actually read the essay where that comes from, he says that everything is from our own mind. So in essence, the answer to the question, if it's like us or not us, it's both. Okay, so NC is asking, what are some good books or resources on the Luciferian approach to working with the spirits of the Goetia? Is the Solomonic approach a good method? I've heard mixed things on what is considered respectful. So I think that this is a very personal path for what is going to work for people or not. One thing that I would say is working with these spirits in the Solomonic approach does not necessarily mean that you're going to be using the same spirits or entities to call upon the demons. Like, you don't have to use angels to call them by following the Solomonic formula, but the formula is what's designed in order to make sure you're actually going to be able to contact that spirit and to be able to have the right spirit and to be able to get it to manifest more easily to physical form. So I would learn. So if you take a look at my Goetia book, I break down the whole formula of what makes the evocation actually work. And then I teach you how to put your own rituals together for summoning these spirits. Oh, yay. So I know before we go, we have just a few more questions here. I definitely want to address my friend and co-author, Zerafina Angelis. Hello. So your question is, Orlee, do you believe an occultist can facilitate the creation of a pact between a client and a demon as a type of ritual for hire? Yeah, absolutely. I've done that for many people, and I've had amazing success with people transforming their lives, but it really is something that the person has to participate in as well. So when I do this for people, I create a ritual that's like an immersive video experience where the person can follow along with me. They have their own pact, they are sealing their pact, they are mentally there as part of it. So that's how I structure it in order to actually connect. And then I will even offer my own blood as part of it as an additional thing to empower the ceremony, like along with them doing it too.
Cool. So we have a few more minutes left if you want to take another question or two.
Sure, absolutely. So, so Charlene says, I've seen so much about the 9 gatekeepers on EA's channel. Can you give a description of who these entities are and what they actually do? They're not familiar to this. So these are rulers of hell. And so the idea is when you summon these demons, they open these gateways of power in your life. Now, power is such a vague thing that kind of even means nothing. So what does that actually mean? These spirits have different things that they will help you with. So for example, Beelzebub helped me work as a psychopomp with the spirits of the dead. But these spirits are going to help you in whatever is important for you to do in your life and your path. So basically, what the gatekeepers are going to do is unknown. I can't tell you. I did it as an experiment, and what it did do is it changed my whole life around. They will make you get rid of the things in your life that are no longer serving you, or the things that are hurting you that you have been afraid to get rid of. They will help you to get through situations of fear and to push you to actually make your life different. If you don't change and if you just summon on these entities to just try to get like empowerment or whatever, and you don't actually allow yourself to change and evolve and be different and live differently based on the gnosis that you receive, they will pretty much destroy you. So it's a very, very powerful, chaotic force. but it really will come down to you. It's like descending into darkness through the opening of every single gate. What we did was we contacted each of these 9 spirits. You don't have to do it like this, but this is what we did. And those of us that did it and went through all the gatekeepers, which is not that many people, but when we went through it and allowed it to change us, it really did help us to make our lives exactly how that we wanted them to be. But that's not easy, right? Like if you imagine your life is this, you're going to have to shake it all up in order for it to become something different. So unless you're willing to go through some serious changes in your life, I would say, like, be careful in approaching the system. Maybe start with one demon and then wait and see what happens. But that was basically the idea, was to cause what we like to think of as the apocalypse, which in the literal meaning is the revealing of that which is hidden. So with the gatekeepers, the idea is through the power of the magic that they bestow in us, where we actually learn how to control our reality, we are revealing the secrets of magic here on Earth, which is basically causing an apocalypse. And we can also look at this as the infernal empire, where now these entities of the infernal are able to have influence on the Earth through working together with us.
That's very cool. I had a question about. So you said you were talking about controlling your reality, and I just wanted to ask as a final question, what is reality, or what is real?
That's such a fun question. What is real? I don't know, Jeremy. I honestly don't. And that's why I live in this fun life of absurdity and creativity where I'm just trying to figure that out. Like, what is real is what has results, what is tangible, but that's even the illusions of Maya. So I don't really know if anything truly is real, but I also don't have any answers more than anyone else. Like, we're all just explorers. And that's the whole idea behind contacting these entities, is trying to discover what is real. And what's real is that magic is real. And I think that's basically the best way I can answer it.
Magic is real. That's a great answer. And thank you. That's a good way to end this, I think. And thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for participating in this. It was great to have you back on the conference, and this time giving a presentation, which is excellent, and participating
Thank
in the art show. And I'll post a link to that again right here. So if anybody
you.
hasn't checked this out yet, it's a three-dimensional virtual space that you can navigate through and look at all the art that's displayed, including Orlee's art and some other great artists as well. So it's really cool. You can check it out on that link that we sent in there. And yeah, thanks again for being on this and for contributing your time and effort to the community to provide this uh, during these times of lockdown where we can't be in person doing this anymore, for now at least.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's also just my name, Orlee Stewart.
Okay, yeah, and we can put that in a comment and pin it on this video.
Thank you so much.
No problem. And yeah, everybody, thanks for participating and providing all the great questions that stimulated some really great discussion. Okay, bye.